And time now is 14 minutes past 8.
Yet another ace pick from Rialto, the home of fine film.
In a country shaken by years of civil war, a powerful warlord's quest for domination threatens all who stand in his way.
Redcliffe is the name of the brand new film that we're looking at this morning in the Film Review Rialto Pick of the Week. John Henderson with his thoughts on Redcliffe.
Fantastic movie. I loved it.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, we'll catch you next week.
That's
that.
Don't shut the gate just yet. Let me tell you a little bit about it.
John Woo, right?
John Woo, he's done Killers, Face Off. Apparently he's always wanted to make this movie. It's based on true events which took place quite a while ago now in China, 208 AD. Mm-hmm. That's, let me repeat that again, 208, not 2008.
That's a
208 AD.
A long time ago.
Quite a long time ago now. Now, this book was called Romance of the Three Kingdoms. I mean, it was written in the 14th century, and that's quite a long time ago as well. Mm. But it's based on historical facts. Now, it seems to me all cultures have at least one huge war that tends to change the course of history. Mm-hmm. And we've even seen a few of them played out on the screen in the past. I mean, the Greeks had Thermopylae, which was the 300 movie. The US had the Civil War, Gone with the Wind. New Zealand and Australia, we've had Gallipoli.
It's true. Mm-hmm.
So it seems to have happened everywhere. And the Chinese, well, they've had quite a few wars, to be honest, even though I missed most of them in history. But I would say this one was the biggest of them all.
What was the general story? Why the war?
What was the synopsis?
Who was against who?
Okay, well, you had a shadow minister, the Prime Minister Chow Chow, in the final days of the Han Dynasty. And he was basically ruling behind the throne. You had a puppet emperor on the throne, quite a young guy. Anyway, Chow Chow wanted to unite all of China. And I think he just loved a good scrap, because he was actually a warlord. He wouldn't just send the boys out to fight, he'd go out and fight himself. Oh. So he decided to declare war on the only two kingdoms, Zhou in the west and East Wu in the south. And so he did this. He said, oh, well, you guys haven't been paying your taxes and you don't want to come on board and become part of Greater China, so we're going to annihilate you. And they're only and the numbers are staggering. He sent out his army, over 1 million soldiers.
Goodness.
To defeat these two warlords who formed an unlikely alliance, Zhou and Wu. There were only 50,000 of them in their force.
Yep. And
believe it or not, 50,000 guys took out 1 million soldiers.
Goodness.
And it's true fact.
Wow.
I was just going, oh, it's awesome. It's just an incredible movie. The reason it's called Redcliffe is the final battle is at Redcliffe.
Okay.
And during the course of the movie, you see that the Prime Minister Chow Chow is actually in love with one of the warlord's wives and wants that girl for himself. So even though I think he's saying, yes, I want to unite all of China, he also wants to steal another man's wife. So there's a bit of a subcontext in the storyline there.
Okay, so even though the scale of it's different, the timing is different, everything, how does it sit differently to, say, Braveheart?
Well, for a start, I could barely understand what they were saying in Braveheart. It was a very thick Scottish accent. Yeah. And I could have done with subtitles. Yeah. This is all in Mandarin with subtitles. And in fact, that trailer you just played is the only English in the movie. So be prepared to do a little bit of reading. But visually, this is just full on.
Yeah.
And it's a lot cleverer than the likes of Braveheart. 50,000 soldiers onto 1 million, they have to use a bit of cunning, and they use a lot of cunning. It's just fantastic. The characters are so well drawn. I mean, I've seen a lot of these sort of war epics where, based on historical events, all the main characters are highly idealized and stylized. So it's like, oh yeah, the good guy, and he always does good, and oh yeah, he was a bit of a villain, he's always doing bad. But these characters are really well played, and they are very human.
So there's a massive body count, obviously.
Oh, it's just just kept rolling on and on. I don't know if did you see Mongol last year?
No, I didn't know.
Well, it reminded me a little bit of that. There's some fairly graphic and very basic war scenes where there's guys on horses with swords and just carving up victims. And there's a lot of this going on. However, you know that it's all just leading up to this massive fight at the end called Redcliffe, and you're just thinking, when's this going to happen? And when it finally does, it's just like, oh my goodness, it's just massive. 2,000 ships get burned.
Oh, so there was a naval battle as well.
There was a naval battle, so there's a sea battle, there's battles on land, the 50,000 strong army are using all the elements against the million strong, the wind changes, suddenly the fire's blowing in another direction. It's just
wow.
It's huge. It's great. It's a long movie. Apparently the original movie John Woo made was 4 hours and it got sliced down to about 2.5 for the big screen. But it's just awesome. I'd say it's the best war movie I think I've ever seen, and I used to quite like Saving Private Ryan. We've come a long way.
Yes, indeed. And as you say, there's that personal story in there as well, because you always got it with these flicks, with these epics. You got to have some kind of love story, and you
do. You need a hook.
Otherwise,
it just gets a little bit sort of it's another fight scene.
So that keeps the ladies watching.
And it keeps a lot of the guys watching too, because the young wife's a hottie. So I can see why Cao Cao wanted to steal the wife. She's a cutie. I'd have to say there's some really, really clever bits in here. There's some neat. My favourite scene was actually football being played in 3rd century China.
What were they playing with?
They were playing with this kind of leathery pigskin thing, and it was a couple of the regimental soldiers' teams fighting each other. And yeah, there's some really good skills in that. And I was thinking, oh, that's quite an interesting angle. I mean, yeah, they were fighting, but when they weren't fighting, what were they doing? Oh, they're playing football. Right. Yeah, really neat stuff.
What would you give it out of 5 then?
Oh, I'm rolling in at a 4.9. It would have hit a total 5. However, right at the end, there was sort of a climactic standoff between the two leaders, and the fight scene was just, my credibility was stretched a little bit. I mean, I know John Woo loves that kind of stuff. Let's bring out the fighting wires, and we've got guys soaring through the air and a little bit of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. And I was prepared to accept some of that, but historically this is just such a big movie that I was just thinking at the end where you've got this sort of standoff, which was a little bit like Face Off. I was waiting for Travolta and Cage to appear, and I was thinking, couldn't you have been a little more decisive with the finish? I mean, you always know you hope you know how it's going to finish anyway, but the standoff wasn't needed. That was my personal thought.
Okay. All right. Redcliffe.
But it's massively major. Love it.
Off to go play with your pigskin leathery thing. Thanks, John.
You keep your eyes peeled for the soccer. You'll love it.
See ya. Don Henderson with his thoughts on Redcliffe.
From legendary director John Woo. Comes a new epic like no other. Redcliffe, a John Woo film.
Sweet as. Check out rialto.co.nz for a little more.